The new channel. The new channel. Hashtag TNC Now.
The views, opinions, and insights expressed in the following shows are those of the host, producers, guests, and viewers. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome. Good morning. Welcome to the new channel. Our passion transforms a community that sees all things new. This is Jesse Francis Rebustillo, live streaming from Marcelo Green, Parañaque City, and you are watching HR Hotline Season 8, Episode 140. Wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. It is, how many days are we from Christmas? Direct, can you show us the number of days that we are actually waiting before Christmas? You know, we are still in the pandemic, and all of us are happy 63 days. Take a picture of me peeping 63 days before Christmas. And you know, I like that song. Faithful friends who are dear to us, gather near to us once more. Yeah, napakanta ninyo ako eh. From 2 to 92, I have a grand nephew who is in the States. He looks so amboy. So I am so happy that he will be enjoying Christmas. And I have a mom who is actually we don't in Bicol we call it ulyanin, but it's not yet it's not yet dementia, but you know it's the old age, and she's just like me. November I will be 65, and my mom will be 95 December 3. So we all must enjoy Christmas. Now it's a wonderful day. Yesterday I was invited by the labor, it's industrial relations committee of PIMA as a moderator, and I love the topic. The topic is actually the paradox of the great resignation and unemployment. So we like to share that with you, and I can see that we have already guests coming in. I would like to share that with you because it's a wonderful topic, especially for leaders, HRs, and owners. It's already happening in the States. So, you know, when the first world sneezes, sometimes we also get the cold. So it's nice because we can actually be prepared for it. Although what I gathered yesterday, that that's why it's a paradox. There are a lot of people unemployed. So it's not a problem. No, 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 no. Because the problem in talent acquisition, which we are going to ask our guest later on, it's not that there are warm bodies. that you can actually that are actually available. The problem with HR is actually acquiring and recruiting the competent applicants so that it will fit to your culture. So there are a lot of people actually resigning despite the pandemic. I know of one, a dear friend of mine who's an executive officer of an organization. She left. She left the organization. I know that the reason is on the surface, it's about the pandemic, but I know from what you call the real story, it's actually the experience that she is having. So my synthesis yesterday, and I would like our guests to listen to this, was that yes, it is a paradox that there is what you call unemployment, but people are resigning. Two, there are reasons for leaving, and one is safety. Ang hirap maganap ng katulong ngayon. People from the province, especially from Bicol, they don't want to come here to Manila. They're afraid to be infected. So it's safety. And I know a lot of my friends who are actually say residing in Bulacan, working here in Makati, or residing in Laguna, working in Makati, are afraid to traverse. So they just resign. The other one is actually, it's the opportunity. I know of HR in Davao and in CDO. They are not working here anymore in the Philippines. They're working abroad. They did not leave. They are actually offshore HR. I know of 3 companies here in Ayala. They're actually servicing countries all over the world. So there are opportunities. But this time they already went on their own. And of course, the online. I know a lot of here neighbors who are not in the corporate world anymore, and they're doing online marketing. And the last one is that the little chismis that I told you. The pandemic was just an excuse for leaving because actually they are not experiencing anymore the what are they expecting. So the fourth one, of course, is it's actually employer led, the redundancies. I will tell you what are the things to do later. So before we ask our guests to join me, let me share with you 2 slides that I got yesterday. Direct, can we have those slides? Yes, this is actually from the Institute of Labor Studies. It tells us that the labor turnover rate by sector, it's negative 8.3, negative 7, negative 2. But we're telling us that it is not yet a pandemic scale. Because there are a lot of people here who are actually unemployed. But if you can look at it, uh, even if it is 0.8, there are people resigning. Can we go to the other slide, please? I would like to share this with you. The other slide is, yes, 82% is actually resignation. Then the 13.8 is AWOL. And then 4.2 is actually retirement. And why do employees resign? 38 is for personal issues. 18, or that's around 19, hired by other companies. Take note of that. There are a lot of opportunities. So if you're the leader, the question is the valued employees that we have. I just read also yesterday in the Philippine Daily Inquirer, St. Luke's, the head of the union of the nursing group, actually already raising a red flag that in the past 2 months, 5 of their valued nurses were hired and then are now in the States. And you know how much? It was in the Inquirer, 150,000 per month. So that's actually an executive pay who would like not to grab that. So that is the problem. So it's nice that we are already discussing about it because it will happen. It's not that there are a lot of people that can come in. Just like with me, I need somebody to magwalis ng aking garden. There are a lot of guys that I can ask and then I can pay. But you have to look at it. Do they know how to sweep in the garden? Are you sure that they will not get anything? Are they vaccinated? That's it. That's another one. So you cannot just say that there are what you call people available, warm bodies available. And you should always have to think of competency, attitude, skills, and knowledge. And look at that family consideration. I think this is safety 2.6 is due to COVID and others. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen, as an intro. At this time, can we now ask our dear friend, I would like to thank him this early, Mr. Jerry Plana, to give his thoughts and insights on this, on the great um, resignation. Jerry, good morning, Jerry. Good morning, past President Jerry. Jerry here has been my friend up and down, and we still are friend. Ang dami ng up and down. And I can secret ito. There were times during the face-to-face, we are there in the farthest end of a venue. Actually rubbing our elbows, literally rubbing our elbows. And then, and then my idol, in Desiderata, there's always somebody greater or lesser than you are, and I consider Jerry the greater person than I am. Yon ang introduction ko kay Jerry. Okay, Jerry is with the investors in people. Jerry, yun nga, di ba, good that we're discussing this kasi people are not appreciating it na there is the great resignation already happening all over the world. And the Philippines parang tralala pa rin. What are your insights on this?
Thank you for having me, Jesse. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a very interesting subject indeed. I've been glued to it, watching over developments in the United States specifically. But we don't have too much data here in the Philippines. But I do know a few organizations that I deal with are really experiencing unprecedented turnover rates, especially during this year, 2021. Not too much 2020. Probably people, stayed where they are. But starting 2021, the resignations have been a little unprecedented, voluntary. And I have some theories, basically perspectives along this area. I think what happened was in the last 18 months, if we're talking about the entire pandemic period, I think the world has changed totally. I think even from the perspective of the employees themselves, I think there was a radical shift from people just being concerned about making a living pre-pandemic days to people making a life. And I think that's a totally different perspective altogether because pre-pandemic, we seem to have subordinated everything about life to work. We were so engrossed in work, in building careers, even at the expense of families and other personal goals. But all of a sudden, because of this pandemic and the reflections we've had during these months, suddenly we realize what's truly important for us. And then we try to reorder our priorities. And that's why now, the way I look at the profile of our employees is that they are putting life ahead of work. Work is now subordinated to life because they want to make a more fulfilling and meaningful life. That's why they're making those choices now, changing careers or changing jobs because they're getting lesser pay or lower pay, or just getting into business or doing something different and taking care of their families at the same time. So that's a very quick perspective of how I'm seeing this development, Jesse.
Right. Before I react to that, I would like to greet Louis Moro from Bacolod. She's in the room, and I have a nephew, a nephew-in-law who is actually running for a seat as a councilor in Ginobatan. He's watching. Hello, Randy. You listen to this because you may get something and a thought from what we are discussing with our dear friend Jerry Plana. And we have lots of friends also here. Okay. Yes, Jerry. that's the positivity of what happened with the pandemic, because it made people realize that we are not really after the performance anymore, not actually the your career. Yeah, yeah, of course, still the career, but it's not actually uh, yung tawag nito, what you told us, it's not work. It's not work. It's more of life, because napilitan ka nga to stay at home. Nag-integrate ka ng life eh. So you were able to realize, ang mahirap nito, Jerry, they got accustomed to it. The first few months, there were some resistance. It was just like in the BPO, the first few years that there was a graveyard shift. They didn't like it. But after they got accustomed to it, they would like to be assigned on that shift. Similarly, with the work from home, because it's a disruption, everybody was actually a little bit resistant. Then later on, when they found out that they can do their work and they are at home, then they realized that it is one of the best the thing that happened during the pandemic. So it's the realization that I would like to inject this, Jerry, and I would like to get your thoughts. Now that we are in what you call virtual mode, the relationship between bosses and subordinates are more on performance. You just reminded that you have to do this, then you have to tell them of the output. Parang challenge relationship, and then the effect now, the result is parang yung taong is actually sensitive and na affected by that. Na-realize, Jerry, na, my God, I am I am I am experiencing this, and I'm spending the best years of my life trying to be like a robot and trying to produce. Then, on the other hand, na-realize niya that I can also be, say, on another growth path. Diba? Kaya ang decision is to really, give up the corporate job and then seek for, yung nagsisik, yung actually what we are teaching, Jerry, seek his sweet spot.
That's right.
Anong thoughts mo dyan?
Yeah.
Anong thoughts mo?
We had this term before, pre-pandemic. We always said we were in a rat race. That was one way of describing the workplace of pre-pandemic. We were at the rat race. We were so concerned about all work, sometimes at the expense of family. That's why at one time our cry was work-life balance. Let's balance work and
Yeah,
family.
I heard you talk about that 15 years ago, Jerry.
Yes,
I heard
that's right.
that. Yeah.
If you remember that work-life balance,
Yeah.
but work-life balance started with just work and family conflicts. That's why we had awards like the most family-friendly organizations and things like that. We were trying to balance that off that time, because it was really a rat race. And this 18 months has really made us reflect, no? Is this the place we want to be? And then you couple that with bad leadership. We have a real toxic work environment. And that's the reason why I think the greatest challenge now is what the pandemic has done to us is really we need to rethink the way we build our workplaces. Culture becomes very important ever more. I think managers should pay serious attention to culture development that will produce the kind of desirable employee experiences if they want their employees to be fully engaged. I think that is the sequence.
Yan ang i-discuss natin, kasi that is actually my action plan when I synthesized yesterday. So, before we go to that, ang last na i-share ko sa iyo, Jerry, kasi sometimes I realize, especially even those in the rank and file, yung nandito sa, tawag natin laylayan, itong sabi natin na mga even with the contractual, the one that you just mentioned, yung parang they are now going to parang assess, is this the life that I would like to live? I am only receiving this much, then I am being used na parang, pardon the street lingo, utusan. So ay para kung uto-uto, kasi diba it's virtual already. Wala na yung mga kilig-kilig factor when you are face to face. So para bang you're right, si Jerry, it's right. Yung para bang you're just read after it's a rat race. You just like to achieve it without any what do you call that, yung parang actualization mo, yung ano mo, yung dream mo, nawawala yung dream mo. You're just after, para bang it's more on accomplishing or achieving what the organization wants from you. Tapos
Yes.
na-realize mo na, paano ako ay nag-grow din ako, kailangan ko rin. Na-realize yan ngayon, Jerry, during the pandemic. So,
You're very right, Jesse. Yeah, you spot on. That's spot on. You know, the word I used to describe the pre-pandemic workplace, what was happening to people, the word, Jesse, is languishing. We
Yes.
were languishing. You know what it feels like if you're languishing? It is as if you just go through the motions each day. Of course, probably you get good pay, but probably you're suffering in comfort. You know that another paradox: suffering in comfort. You're comfortable because of material, but some things are still lacking. And this is what we discovered during the pandemic. People discover this, and they don't want to let this go now. And that's
TNCCO Panansala has a post here, Jerry. Can we read that? Can we spot it on direct? It's a very nice post. Buti na lang we have a very good managers and staff at the TNC and Passelback. Praise the Lord that the retention rate in Passelback is really very good. We have employees now regional at 9 years na. Nasa amin pa rin. We also have a lot of returning employees. The return not because they're loyal but because they belong. They feel the sense of family, loyalty is key, but it's also important that they know that their values are aligned with the company. Yes. We'll discuss on that, Jerry. Okay, pabalikan natin kasi that is actually my synthesis. So the problem is, para matapos natin, yung nare-realize ng tao ngayon na, di ba, it's actually working is a collaboration, the needs of the organization and your needs. At na nakikita ngayon parang hindi balanse. Kasi nga, you are trying to integrate it. Ang mahirap din dito, Jerry, may mga empleyado rin on the employees, including us. Sometimes we think that we need a lot of things coming from the organization. Para bang we demand a lot of things kasi we expect them to take care of us. Diba? So that is the problem. And with that, if that is not really achieved, then you decide to leave. Nag-quit. Okay, nandito na si Past President and Chairman of PIMA, Council of Advisors, and the Chairman of Elecom,
Ang dami.
Obet Policarpio. Okay, nandito na kami. Ang dami na namin pinag-usapan ni Jerry, ha. Nanon na namin yung...
Magandang tanghali sa inyo lahat, lalo sa ating kasama si Past President Jerry. Ito, Jerry. Good to see you here.
We were already we are done with the situation na the reasons why people are leaving. Hindi na namin na-mention that actually sometimes it is employer-led na talagang na-redundant. So that is out of the question. Ang tinatingnan natin dito, that paradox wherein there's a lot of unemployment, it is a pandemic, the employee decides to leave. So nausapan na namin PP Obet. So we are now in this, kasi mahaba ito. So what should employers or leaders do? Dito na tayo. In my synthesis, Jerry and PP Obet, I told him yesterday, and then you mentioned it already kanina, that you have to reinvent their employee experience. Ang una munang tanong, may ano ba kanilang employee experience? I would like to get your insights, Jerry. Kasi nasabi mo na yan kanina, nag-start ka na eh. So, for us to really, of course, it's so expensive to get the right people. And then actually, HR's job is to retain them, develop and retain them. Pero ito na nga yung problema, the Great Resignation. At isang sagot dyan, na nasabi ni PP Jerry kanina, is employee experience. Now, Jerry, tell us please, ano dapat ang gawin parang ma-retain?
Okay, let me say by saying that I think leaders now need to really transform the way they deal with people in a radical way. I think one of the things that they need to do is really get serious in culture building activities. I think when we say culture building, leaders should be creating meaning in the workplace. They should provide autonomy to people. Like what happened in the pandemic. Leaders were forced to trust people working from home. And a lot of these managers struggled with that because they don't trust people really. That's why they're micromanaging and they want to see people while they're working and things like that. They needed to cut away from that if they needed to have productive people working at home. So I think they have to create meaning. They have to trust people, give more autonomy, and continue to be developers and builders of people. I think they need to stay away from micromanaging people. I think we need to give autonomy people to do their jobs and perform other functions like being a source of inspiration, a source of support, a source of guidance. I think that's the kind of transition that we need to make leaders follow, especially if you're leading remote workers, people you don't see. You
Right,
know,
Jerry. Right, Jerry. Alam mo, before I react to that and I ask the insight of PP Obet, I would like to say hello to Virgie. Virgie is a trustee of PMAP. She's also here watching us. Hello, Virgie. Join us. Join us. Tell your insights, Virgie, dito sa chat. Okay. And then they say, nagsabi si Virgie ng hello sa atin. PP Jerry, that's right. Ako naman chismoso. Chismisan kita. I know of an association, an organization wherein ang nagko-complain actually yung mga heads, not the rank and file. Kasi they don't like to be yung sinasabi mong macromanage, yung check-in, check-out, yung para bang ura-urada, yung just imagine, it's not PIMAP pa, baka sabihin PIMAP, it's not PIMAP, pero it's an organization. Just imagine, bumalik Jerry yung, kasi wala na yung timekeeping, yung secretary, nag-check kung are you in, are you doing this. Alam mo ang nag-complain yung mga heads. Sabi niya, we are already, give us the autonomy and we're responsible to do it. I really called the head kasi it's actually a cousin of mine. Sabi ko, oo naman. Kasi sabi ko, baka pag, yung parang during the face-to-face, okay lang yung Jerry, you go out from your office and then you look for your head and then, natapos na ba? It's so cute, di ba? It's so cute. Pero if you keep on calling your head na dapat tapusin na, it's a little bit different. So that is actually a situation that I'm telling you and Jerry is actually correct. We are just making it clear kasi that is one. That actually, anong tawag nun, Jerry? Irritates. That's actually intimidates or irritates the people that are really working. Tapos after that, mag-resign na. Actually, yes, Jerry. Ikaw muna, Jerry. Yes.
if I need to jump in, Jesse, even the worker, the work is changing. We're doing a lot of knowledge work. What does that mean? The knowledge worker, they are in the best position to know their jobs. The manager should be, they're already detached from the actual job itself. That's why the SME, the subject matter expert, is now the employee. That's why we need to continue developing them, supporting them, and not being too controlling. Because sometimes this is the problem with managers. They think that since they're managers, they need to have all the answers to themselves. No, that's not true. That's even dangerous. If you think you have the answer and you don't, and then you enforce that, that's even more dangerous for the organization. That's not the way to justify you being a manager.
Yeah. Ay nako, magagalit ito yung kapatid ko Jerry ha. Yung guest namin, she's actually due for retirement. Ayaw pa sana yun umalis. Ay nakapag-decide nung last year, ay siguro it's time. Dahil dyan sa sitwasyon na yan. Sabi niya, no, matatanda ako nito. I don't want anymore to be stressed. Sabi nga, anyway, I am due for retirement. Mag-retire na nga ako kasi I cannot really actually survive with this kind of yung mga exchanges. Yun ang sinasabi mo, Jerry. Oh, ang dami na namin napag-usapan ni Kuya Jerry. I'm older. Jerry, I'm older than you are, no?
Yes.
Gano'n? Yes ka agad.
I cannot call you Kuya. Anyway.
Pero alam ko, mas bata ko sa inyong dalawa.
Ikaw na PP Obet, anong thoughts mo dito?
I really enjoy listening to your wonderful conversation. And one of the things that dawned in on me as I listened to your awesome conversation are two things: employee engagement and employee experience. Yon. So for me, it doesn't follow if employees are engaged. They have always this kinda employee experience. Bakit kinda? Kasi it's a question of really finding out what's the kind of employee experience. Is it negative or is it positive? Is it active or passive? So for me, when we talk of employee engagement, especially at the level of management, the leaders, the supervisors, we really have to purposively determine the touch points of the employee's life cycle. If we have 1,000 employees being led and being managed, just imagine you have more than 1,000,000 touch points for each and every life cycle of each employee, because each employee is unique, and that includes you and me because we are also employees, isn't it? So when I say employee touch point in the life cycle, this pertains to the spirituality, mental, social, emotional, physical, no health. In other words, the total packaging, the wellness, the well-being of an employee. And everything will really begin from inspiration. Because
Right.
without inspiration, it will not drive the motivation. Now, if
Right.
an employee is inspired and motivated, definitely it follows persuasion without being told, without being scolded, you know, without being something. The employee who is inspired and motivated will really go beyond what is expected. Ito yung sinasabi ni Kuya Jerry na don't micromanage. Diba? Kaya
So,
nga, importante
inspiration,
dyan,
motivation, persuasion. No?
persuasion. Yan ang three operative terms for an
Okay.
employee, not only to be engaged, but to have that kind of experience. It's not me and you as the manager or the head who will define that. It's really the employee. How will you know the definition of the employee? By the degree of his output, not in terms of 9 to 6 or 8 to 5, but in terms of the deliverables driven by motivation. And thank you.
Ay, ang gusto sabihin discretionary. Okay, maganda yung pasok kasi there are some comments in the chat box. Pareho to. One is coming from Purgy and the other one is from our dear friend Dean Gloria Vacancy. She's a dear friend of mine. She's actually the head of the HR Group Association of tawag nito, mga hotel and restaurant institutions. Okay. So, sabi ni Gloria Vacancy, I agree with you, Sir Jesse. Micromanagement is not good. We have to empower the team, trust them, and the more they can innovate. Then can we go back to Virgie? Ang tanong ni Virgie dapat masagot natin. What if it's the leader who is not trustworthy? Okay. We would like to discuss that. Kasi it's the employee experience, reasons. Ito nga talaga, parang masabi natin to kay Virgie, yung parang bang they love the work, they love the pay, but they left because of the boss. Okay. So if it's untrustworthy. Okay.
Can I take a stab at that, Jesse?
Yes.
Okay. You know how trust works is something like this. A leader needs to start the trusting of people. The leader needs to take that risk of trusting people. It's only by doing that that one becomes trustworthy.
Yes.
So that's the dynamic of trust, really. So the leader cannot say, "I will only trust you if you're trustworthy," because if you start that way, you start with distrust, and distrusting people has a lot of disadvantages. Let's face it. So I think the leader has to have the courage and take the risk of trusting, and by doing that, he becomes trustworthy.
Yeah. So para bang ang sinabi mo, Jerry, na if you don't have love, you cannot really give it. So dapat muna you is it outward mindset, no? Ang gusto mong sabihin, Jerry, you have to trust people first, then mag-uumpisa na yan sa'yo, babalik na yan sa'yo. Ganun ba yung
Because
gusto mong sabihin?
there's a lot of benefit to trusting people. You allow people to unleash their full potentials if you trust them. Because if you don't trust them, you don't allow that.
Yeah.
So that's the advantage of trusting. I think we need to take a look at the advantages of trusting people. The leader should have to mind.
Besides Jerry, ikaw naman nag-decide that they should be you invited them to join the group, di ba? You recruited them. So you have to trust them that they will do their job. But if you don't trust them, that's the chicken and the egg. They will not trust you also.
You know, Jesse, a simple analogy or metaphor I have for good leadership is good parenting. What do every good parent want for their children? They want them to be independent at a certain point in time. They don't want them to be ever dependent. So unless you start trusting them and making them fall and then learning from that and then guiding them, they will never become independent at a future time. That's the same thing we need to do with our people in the workplace as leaders.
Nako, Din Gloria, narinig mo yung sinabi ni Pipi Jerry. Yan dapat yung sasabihin natin dyan sa hotel and restaurant. Di ba, Jerry? Yung parang you should trust the cook that the cook will really come up with a nice dish. You have to trust the bartender that yung kanyang concoction will really be nice. Kasi kung if you don't trust and keep on checking, ay hindi talaga matututo.
That's right. And the other thing, Jesse, if you trust people, the fact that people feel they're trusted is motivating for them. You know, my boss trusts me, so I better not betray that trust. So that's another.
Siguro na alam mo, Pipi Jerry, naisip ko, we must have to revisit and come up with webinars on teaching leaders on how really to trust. Para di kasi nagsa-surface ngayon yung problema eh. And people are really leaving because of that eh. I know a lot of people na hindi naman ako pinagkakatiwalaan, umalis na nga ako.
Di ba si Stephen Covey Jr. was the one who propagated the idea, the speed of trust, sabi niya.
Yeah.
Pag meron kang trust, you get work done faster. That's why you need to build trust into the culture. So without trust, you very well the strategies that you have.
Thank you very much, Virgie. Tingnan mo, napiga natin yung thoughts ni Jerry on trust. Ikaw, Pipi Obet, what are your thoughts? And after this, we'll have a break.
Well, napakaganda nung tanong ni Trusty Virgie, no, on trustworthiness. For me, there are two basic components of trustworthiness o yung trust. Two C's, character and competence and character. You cannot have trust without the other. Hindi pa pwedeng mas important yung character over competence or competence over character. That's why, as a leader, you really have to prove your worth to your people if you are really a leader or a manager, because these are two different things. Because a leader cannot succeed as a leader if he or she attempts to do it alone without the foundation of trustworthiness and being trustworthy at all. That's why the success of a leader really requires strong followership driven by inspiration, motivation, and persuasion. Balik ako din kanina. Kaya nga pagka hindi nakatiwa-tiwala at dahil hindi ka marunong magtiwala, asahan mo, yung tiwala, mawawala yan. And in the word, pagtitiwala at katiwa-tiwala, watch out the word, wala. Wala ang natin. Kaya nga, without employees that you fail to trust, mawawala yan, and don't expect them to be your followers. They will just simply obey you because nagkataon ikaw ang manager ko out of fear, but they will not have this engagement because they have a poor employee experience.
Yun, alam mo ba, Direct Monica nakikinig sa atin ha. There is a question here from Virgie, but we'll answer that after the break. Ang sagot niya, I agree with you, Jerry, in terms of trusting people. But what if the leader is not sincere in their commitments? I agree with Obet. Good character is an important ingredient in getting the trust of people. Well, we go to that after the break, and then I will continue with the synthesis. I have four. Sana may yung oras natin ano. So, ang una natin is employee experience, diba? Ang sunod natin pag-uusapan is we answer the question of Virgie and then that one of culture. Okay? So we can have a quick break, direct. Interest.
Have you been dreaming of launching your own podcast but don't know how and where to start? Let ValuePod Productions podcast editing and management services help you effortlessly launch, syndicate, and grow your podcast. Message us at facebook.com/ValuePodProductions. ValuePod Productions podcast editing and management services, humanizing personal connections through podcasting.
Okay, direct. Let us just flash the various shows. I will not read anymore the script for everybody who's watching. These are wonderful shows in TNC, so I would like to invite you to watch them. It runs from Mondays to Sundays. Actually, we even have a Holy Mass in TNC. Thank you very much, Direct, because for the interest of time, I would like to call again my dear friends and idols and kuyas, PP Jerry and PP Obet. Yes, yes. Virgie actually mentioned, yes, he agrees that there should be character character, it should be, we have to differentiate character from personality. Character is actually embedded in the individual. You must have your own EQ. And then that of competence, you must know the simple definition of competence, which is attitude, skills, and knowledge. And that is very nice of you to remind that, because we are now discussing, ladies and gentlemen, the resignations. And then, of course, it is, we should not panic, but actually it is happening that people are getting a little bit what do you call this, forced to really quit and leave their work. And one of the reasons are actually yung leadership. So we are just discussing. After that, we go to culture. Okay? Kasi I have 4. So the other one is, yes, paano daw yung the important ingredient of gaining the trust of people. Jerry, when I sometimes teach about trusting, na may mention natin yung honesty, na may mention natin yung integrity. I have my own definition of integrity. Integrity is actually achieving what is expected from you. So, di ba? So, that is my personal definition to explain it. So, ang tanong dito ni Virgie is, an ingredient getting the trust of people. What, say, I agree with Jerry in terms of trusting people. About what if the leader is not sincere in her commitments? Yun nga ang mahirap ngayon, kasi we are on a virtual mode, and then that commitment is actually an area na parang, diba? Yun ang tanong, the questionable. So what are your insights on this?
Can I start? Yeah.
Yes, sure.
The key word that Virgie shared was about sincerity, So I think an insincere leader will never last. Mahalata yung insincerity mo. No? Insincerity means you're faking, you're pretending to trust. I think you will not go very far if you are very sincere. I think this really makes us, or should make us, rethink the way we develop our leaders. I think as a result of the pandemic, I think we need to really redefine and revisit that process, because we had the thinking before, we just make them attend 1 or 2 leadership seminars, they're already leaders. It does not happen that way. I think there must be a more continuous way of looking at leaders. You train them as a group, then you coach them as individuals, you get feedback systems, things like that. I think we really need to do that. We want to make our leaders not responsible for the high turnover. Because remember, people leave this, not their companies. We have always said that in the past, no? So I think leadership has a big role in retention of our talent in the organization. But I think we need to pay serious attention to how to develop these leaders, and not just from the sincerity side, but even from behaviors. What new behaviors we need to exhibit to build trust in the new normal, no? In this new normal. So I think we need to learn that.
Yeah, that's true, Jerry. Yeah, it's true. Kasi alam mo, dyan yung, the way I cannot really find the right word, parang that is the key. That is actually the one that really clicked. Kasi you mentioned earlier that you must trust people so that you can be trusted also. But ang tanong nga ni Virgie, parang, paano ito kung you that really comply with what is expected, di ba? Yung commitment mo. So dapat, tama ka, Jerry, that we really need to review. Kasi ang mahirap, a lot of leaders, they just pass through the supervisory training, the leadership training, without actually putting it into their system. How they can really show yung talagang articulating and providing and showing leadership. And that one way, actually, I will repeat, articulating, showing, and providing commitment. Kasi nakikita na ngayon, Jerry, na kitang-kita.
I'll give you one example, no? The value of leadership feedback. I don't know how many in our companies, when they do leadership program, they integrate a system for feedback giving to leaders. What are people saying about the leaders? That is very important, because if you don't have that, leaders judge themselves by their intentions. No? And we always have good intentions. That's why we think well of ourselves. But when people give us feedback, they base their feedback on the leader behavior. And there might be a difference between the intention and the behavior. And that is
Yes,
what we need to
yes,
confront so that leaders become really better at
yes.
behaving and building trust.
And I can just imagine, of course, organizations are dynamic, and what is the quality and what is the veracity or what is the truthfulness of that feedback. Okay, ang dami na namin pinag-usapan. Before we go to Femery Kabantak, our dear friend si Femery nandito ha. Okay. PP Obet, alam ko naman, the Monsignor Obet, anong masasabi mo doon? Kasi importante po ito ha. Ladies and gentlemen, we are practically hitting, thank you Virgie, yung noon nung patama si Jerry. Ano ang reason for living? It's not the work, it's not the money, it's actually I am living in hell. It's the boss. Oh, anong insight mo diyan, Obet? You're muted. You're muted. Please unmute. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
the words sincerity and trustworthy, yung trust and sincere, there's a hairline difference between the two. But
Mhm.
you cannot really have one or the other. Kinakalan, yung sincerity kasi, nararamdaman mo yan eh. Pag sinabing, Jerry, mahal kita. O ano ramdam mo pare? Jerry, mahal kita.
Tumagos.
Tumagos, di ba? So, more than the words, yung sinasabi ni Kuya Jerry, it's really the behavior. No? More than the words. It's how you really make the person connect to you. Not you connect to them. No? Yung connect to sila, dapat, yun eh. Dapat tagos and they will reciprocate that.
Yep. So that is actually emotional and knowing yourself, how you're going to really project yourself. Yung mga socials. Anyway, can we go to the post of our dear friend Femery Kabantak? Yes, the beautiful BFF ko yan. This is a very important topic indeed, Jesse. Boundaries between personal and professional workspace, between work and home has blurred. At the forefront of finding and designing interventions to address this and stern resignations as a result of the blurring boundaries is not only HR but business process management. Ang lalim naman ng post ni ano. Ang nakukuha ko lang that it's a business process. Very good. So, we end up muna yung discussion. I-park muna natin dun sa leader. We go to the process. Yung sinasabi ni Femery. Anong insight mo nito, Sir, Jerry? Na sinasabi ni Femery.
Sabi ni Fe is really touching on the culture, the entire organization. That when people resign, okay, leadership has a specific role, but I think the entire culture and process, the way work is done, like process, we talk a lot about hybrid now, isn't it? Hybrid, organizations that don't do hybrid, I think will be on the losing end. Because hybrid now, to me, becomes now part of the employee value proposition. It is part of of defining what a great place to work looks like. The flexibility that you give your talent in order to do work. Now we're beginning to see that work is not a place. Work is not office. Work is an activity that can be done anywhere. Most of work anyway. And we need to recognize that. We found that out in the pandemic. And we need to redefine the way we build our organizations, our cultures, our processes, so that this can be integrated into it. Otherwise, I don't think we have the capacity or the ability to retain the talent we need going into the future.
Right. So ang gustong sabihin natin, it's not only trying to review and reinvent yung ating tinatawag na it's employee experience. We really have to reinvent the processes and then the culture. Kasi ang mahirap naman na you're just trying to say, okay, we are now in the pandemic, we are doing this, you are now tech savvy, you give them the tools, you give them the Zoom, you give them everything. Pero you're still in the past, yung sa culture. And also, you're still just trying to parang the process. Yung para bang transfer mo lang yung process doon sa platform. Wala rin mangyayari, di ba, Jerry? It's more of a mindset.
Jesse, in HR, we are so familiar with competency building
Yes.
and competency models. But that is only good from an individual behavior perspective. But when we take a look at an organization and cultures, we need to talk about capabilities. What is the
Yes.
capability of the organization to do a certain thing? And this is where processes will have to come in as well. Competencies plus processes equals organization capability, and that is what the culture brings, so that it's able to execute the business strategies very well. So it's a more integrated approach to development.
Matutuwa niyan si Femery kasi yan parating sinasabi, nobody should be left behind. Kasi di ba yung proseso, yung individual to the capability, yung capability, marami yung isa hindi nakahabol. So nag-behind siya. Okay, PPO bet, and then after that, I'll ask you your parting message kasi, ay may oras pa pala. It's only 57. O PPO bet, what can you say about this? Sa
Well, as
sinabi
we
niyo,
know, as we all know, business processes are very important. But who makes these business processes? Isn't it people?
yes.
Diba? So, what I'm driving at, more than the processes, I agree with Kuya Jerry, we really have to nurture and take good care of our people before anything else. People first before profit. Yan. Kasi without taking good care of people, how can people will be able to take good care of the business processes? And that speaks about the kind of culture of an organization. Now again, I will reiterate this. Banggit ko na to sa iyo, Jesse, in previous shows. Leadership influences culture. And culture shapes people. So kung anong ginagawa ng mga matatanda, yun ang nagagawa ng mga bata. And in the pipeline of leadership, it depends now on how people up there as the leader in terms of mindset and how they treat their people below. Is it built on trust? Is it built taken out of sincerity? No, and so on, so forth and so on. Yun lang. So again, agree also competency, etc. But you really have to put heart in everything we do.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I would like to greet my mentee, si Lay Amizola Lim. Kasama mo yan sa San Miguel.
I know her so much. Hello,
She's
Lay.
learned so much from this session. Jerry, before we end, di ba may nasabi ka, actually, that's a part of my synthesis yesterday. Ang sabi ko, reinvent employee experience, review and develop the culture, and of course, the leadership. And then the third one is reinvent the value proposition. Na-mention mo yan kanina, pareho ang align ang ating utak. So ano ang gagawin? Again, the topic is the great resignation. And people are really leaving, quitting, and resigning. So, ano ang dapat gawin is to look into the experience, you look into your leadership, yung trustworthiness, you look into your culture. Now, the last one is that one of the value proposition. Anong insights niyo ng dalawa rito? Anong dapat na value proposition ang gagawin ngayon? Parang hindi umalis ang ating mga tao. Yes, Jerry?
Okay, I'd like to say that the pandemic has put HR on center stage as far as action is concerned. I think that's not the end of it. I think the challenge of the great resignation, which probably started in the US, might just spread all over the world. Because I believe that what has happened in the last 18 months has really, we're beginning to see a different profile of employees. Employees have reflected deeply about their priorities in life. Employees who put well-being as a top agenda. And that should be able to redefine the way we define employee value propositions these days. Because if we don't align it there, I don't think we'll be able to create a workplace that will be attractive to this talent. So I think we need to align ourselves with the changing profile of the mindset of our employees as a result of this pandemic experience, where well-being is top of the priority. That's why I think one of the critical skills that leaders should have now is what I call, they should be skilled at engaging employees into well-being conversations.
Wow.
Not just performance conversations, not just I will grow you conversations, well-being conversations, because that is top of mind of our employees these days. That's another new skill set that needs to be developed by managers or leaders.
Yes, thank you. And then I'll ask you to do your parting message later on, Jerry. Yes, PP Obet, what can you say about your employee? You should have this because you are actually managing 2,000, I see 3,000 merchandisers
8,000.
association. Ilan?
8,000 employees.
8,000! So anong value proposition mo dyan? Diyos ko, PP Obet, 8,000 yan na tao, ha?
Yes, I already mentioned this in several sessions I had with you in the past how many Saturdays. It's really important that we really take good care of the well-being of the employees of the workforce. So like what Kuya Jerry mentioned, yung well-being, kasi hindi na muna yung target base o yung output kagad. Kasi ngayon, talagang well-being ang dapat titingnan mo eh. Otherwise, you will not be able really to hit the target. That's why we really have to redefine our values, corporate values, redefine our existence in the organization and the existence of the organization in the business community. And then we really have to recalibrate on how things were done prior to pandemic, during the pandemic, and now eto na yun. Ito na yung normal way of doing it and re-strategize so that we will be able to again reset para ma-re-energize ang lahat. Because our ultimate goal is really to create a happy employee so that they also create a happy customer who share the same platform of happy, good experience.
Wow. Wow. Alam mo, sniper talaga yun. Importante yun. Pero when I was listening to you and I was looking at Jerry, nakuha ko yun sa iyo, ha? Na, in one of those talks that yung sinasabi mo, PP Obit na well-being, I think 6, 7, 8 dimensions yan, ha? Nang hindi lang from the salary, down to the safety, down to the emotion, down to spirituality. Di ba yung well-being, kasama na dyan yung financial well-being. So that
Yes.
is, yeah. So yun, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Pipigyan ganito, I have a guest next Saturday, yung si Patrick nga kahapon. Then, siguro kasi the season will end on November 23. Can I have the two of you again for mga 2 Saturdays? Kasi gusto kong mapag-usapan natin. One is that one of the culture. Hindi pa tayo nag-OOD rito. And I would like to really pigain ang utak ng dalawa on the OD because we are nasa OD ka, PP Obet, at kilala ko si Jerry is actually an audit person. Then the other one is that the employee proposition. Let's discuss it para so that we can share that to the HR community. Ano ba na talaga dapat ang what do you call it? The value proposition. Ikaw nagsinabi mo kasi Jerry na it just struck me na para bang we should share this to the community. What is actually that value proposition that we should have? Kasi nandito si Lay. Okay? So before we end, can I have your parting message, dear Jerry? And of course, PP. Jerry, what is your parting message on the topic?
Yeah, can I start my parting message? So my parting message is something like this. I think the pandemic we're experiencing today is not going to be the last major disruption we will ever experience. As we often say, we live in a VUCA environment. So I think what is important if we want to really retain our talent, avoid those unwanted resignations, is to build a very strong organization, a strong, resilient, agile organization. And when I talk about agile, resilient organizations, I only can remember 2 important things. We need to have a dynamic, brilliant strategy that has a clear direction that we need to undertake going into the future. Because if people feel that there's no direction in the organization, they will not have confidence. They will jump ship. I think that's one area. And the other area is the culture side. We need to build a culture that connects everyone, that builds the trust, that makes people give pride in its collective efforts. Everything that people want in working in a workplace. And this is where the employee value proposition needs to be redefined. And leaders make this definitely because we want to produce the kind of employee experiences that make people fully engaged in whatever they do in the organization.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, you know, dapat talaga mag-meet tayo. Can we invite also Femery to discuss on those two? One is the OD portion, and then that one of the value proposition, still on the theme while people leave, so that we can that can be the situation. That can be the case. Okay, before we go to PPO, but I would like to read. Uh, Sabi ni Virgie, well-being not only of employees but also their families. Can you spot on that yung sinabi ni Virgin? Also, um, kay Lay, Ms. Lim, agree with TP Jerry and TP Obet, well-being conversation will truly touch the holistic wellness of employees. And then of course, my ending comment si Virgie, ang sabi niya, I agree with TP Jerry. Yan, yung sa parting message. Okay, can we have your message, Obet?
Well, for me, all the more that the HR professionals, the HR department plays a critical role, no, from the start of the pandemic, because the pandemic, as we know, changes a lot of things, no, in the way we manage people, operate the business, and so forth and so on. So, for me, I believe the HR role fortifies three things, three in one. Three in one to. Yung change management, diyan kasama yung culture, and then yung people management, wherein really not simply having onboarding programs, not only engaging them, but ultimately to really sustain the people in the organization. Happy people. And the third aspect is the administrative portion. So yun yung three in one. No? And this three in one role are not instant, and it really requires the proper mindset in the new normal, so to speak, and how we'll be able to influence the champions of our organization from the top, horizontal and vertical, so that I don't do it alone, you don't do it alone, but we do it together. We really feel inclusivity, no? Everyone, including our loved ones. And
Okay.
because we do it from the heart.
Okay, direct before that we end, because it is a post of Virgie. Congrats everyone, you're all very handsome on screen. Can we ask you direct to take a picture of the three of us?
Thank you, Virgie.
Direct, can you take a picture of us, please? Direct? Direct, nakuha mo na po? Direct. Ayan, siguro nakuha na niyo doon. So thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you very much, PP Obet. It's a wonderful episode. So a quick synthesis of what happened. Yes, first, it's a paradox that people are really living despite the pandemic, despite the unemployment. Although there are some sectors that tell us that it's not actually in the pandemic level. It's not actually, parang it's still not yet a problem in the Philippines. But you know, if you are really an HR is really looking at the capability of your people, and it is already a problem because you have to get competent people in your organization. So, what are the reasons? One of course, safety, and one of course is the opportunities that there are. It's already global. You can actually work from home and work offshore. And then, of course, sometimes it's the reason. That's why we discuss it extensively. It's now an excuse of valued employees to leave. And then the reason is not actually the pandemic, but the reason is actually the employee experience. So what we have to do, thank you, Jerry and PP Obet, we are need to reinvent the employee experience. And of course, review and develop your culture. So I need to have one Saturday so that we can discuss on how what is actually the culture that is relevant at these times, and what is it that we have to develop so that nobody will be left behind, and then reinvent the value proposition. So there goes, ladies and gentlemen. When we say value proposition, this is what I would like to leave with you with this episode. We have to allow flexibility to our people. The pandemic already taught us that we really have to look into all. It's VUCA. And in VUCA, we really need a lot of alternatives to 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 look into, to decide on. So, which is why we have the work from home, we have the AWA, the alternative work arrangement, and then we have the hybrid. So even with that, uh, the pandemic is telling us that managers, organizations should select and what is actually the need and what is actually good for the organization. So that's one. So hindi na pwedeng HR for HR, and then this is what we're going to impose. As PP Obit told us, it should come from the employee and what is actually bottoms up, what is actually the need, and then you provide them, and it's separately personalized ang ating decision. So flexibility is very important. The pandemic actually revealed so much of what really matters, and that's what PP Jerry told us earlier. So we have to be sensitive on that. What is actually that matter? Anong oras naglalaba yung tao? Huwag mo siyang kulitin. Anong oras siya nagpapatulog ng kanyang baby? Huwag mo siyang kulitin. So there is a need now to collaborate when it's the time that you have to do that asynchronous meeting. You have now to assign. And then less of that trying to be micromanaging people. Then allow them to breathe, actually. Yeah, pinag-integrate natin, pinag-workathon natin. Allow mo pag-integrate mag-breathe sila. And then try to look into their growth. And then trust them. Trust them is very important, and empower them. Then just tell them. But hindi lang results, outcome. You have to make sure na mayroon pa rin yung humane way how we are going to treat them. So the last one is employers must be sensitive for what really matters to employees. That is what is important. The pandemic has taught us. It actually hastened or the fourth industrial revolution, are being savvy to technology. The pandemic actually made us agile, made us resilient to embrace it. But what is nice also with the pandemic, it's actually it made us realize how to really manage people, how to really care for people. If you know it, nice experience that we're having it kasi we are nag-realize natin. So what is the thing to do? Review, reinvent, and make sure that what you're going to do is the proper thing. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful episode with past President Jerry Plana and Obit Policarpio. Diyos mabalos,